Welcome friends, it's Ray. Thank you so much for joining me today. In today's video, I am making cards with the Simon Says Stamp December 22 card kit, Joy to You and Yours. So we do get full-size sheet of Simon's Schoolhouse Red, Nina 110-pound cardstock, get an embossing folder, very cute, with the pine and pine cones. And we get some adhesive transfers, so those will be really cute. We also get the foil transfer sheets for those adhesive transfers. We get 8 sheets of some Prima Marketing Candy Cane Lane, I think it's the name of this one, pattern paper. So love those, they are double-sided. And then we get the Simon Says Stamp almost felt cardstock, but it's not felt. It reminds me of flocking, but not as thick. And we get some Distress ink in Lumberjack Plaid. Yay! That is the new Tim Holtz ink. We get 3 of the Tim Holtz candy cane adornments. We get a beautiful Santa die. That's going to be really pretty to work with. And then we get the 6x8 stamp set. Let me turn it this way just so you can get a good glimpse of that, with lots of sentiments, and then this huge leafy swag is what I'm going to call it, with pine cones, berries, holly leaves, pine branches, a wintry mix. So that's really pretty. Alright, so let's get started. Let's make some cards with this kit. All of the cards I make today are going to be A7 5x7 cards. I'm going to cut my panel down to 4 by 6. Okay, by 6. I have placed a scrap piece of paper and my sentiment in my MISTI, picking that stamp up with the door of the MISTI. Prep for heat embossing. And use my Versamark ink. And I'm going to stamp again. Stamp again. Let's see, that looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to use my Wow's Platinum Super Fine embossing powder, because I don't want a shiny gold, but I do want it to look festive. I heat embossed that off camera. Here I've trimmed down my sentiment strip and using liquid adhesive to glue that to my mat, and then I will trim this down. I applied pressure with my acrylic block. Trim this down now that I've placed it on my mat. Use liquid adhesive to affix my sentiment to my panel. Okay, let's go ahead and mat our panel. So I'm partially removing the release paper from my double-sided tape, and we'll make sure I'm standing and line that up. Okay. All right, that's my panel. I think we can add some embellishment. I used double-sided tape to affix my panel to my card base. I partially released the release paper, and then once I got that placed where I want it, I removed the remaining release paper. Okay, I'm going to add some pale gold sequins from my stash, and they have the little openings, and I don't want those on my card, so I am going to add a little bit of a gold Nouveau in pale. This is pale gold. And let me shake this. Give it a good shake. And it's flowing fine. So I'm going to use, let's make sure these are down. Okay, this one's not. Add a little more adhesive. Okay. So I'm just going to put a little gold bead on the inside and let that dry. All right. So that finishes this card. To card number 2. I'm going to die cut this out of that velvet cardstock because I want his hat, parts of his hat and parts of his face or his beard in white. I placed my main panel in my splat box and have removed the cap from my pine needle spray and my iced spruce and just liberally applied that, splattered that over my panel, used a paper towel to just press down and remove that excess. While that's drying, I'm using Festive Berries Distress Oxide ink and an oval from the Hero Arts Infinity ovals, and just roughly coloring in just a portion, the bottom portion of that oval, and doing that very lightly. I added a second layer of ink to darken that a bit. Using some earth tone cardstock from Hero Arts and inked Santa's face up with some vintage photo Distress Oxide ink, and left a hair more light on the right side just to create a little bit of interest. And now I'm assembling him. I did die cut the stars for Santa's hat and a couple of other accent areas from silver glitter cardstock. I saw Joy Baldwin do that in her video, and I thought that was really cute. Makes a very good highlight and adds more interest. add dimension, I did add 2 cardstock blanks for his mustache underneath the velvet cardstock. You could also use foam tape or foam squares underneath. Take your pick. Anything to lift it up, give it a little more dimension. Okay. Alright, so I did go back and color my nose in espresso vintage photo. Okay. So that is probably dry enough. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this star in. I did use 2 blanks for the nose to pop that up as well, and put some liquid adhesive on that and my acrylic block. Now I'm placing my eyes inside of that I've cut out of black cardstock. So I'm using some glue to affix those. I've heat embossed a sentiment from the kit using Wow Superfine Platinum Embossing Powder, trimmed it down on either side with my trimmer, and now I'm just taking my scissors to fussy cut out the corners. Marker to apply just a little color to his cheeks. I'm using liquid adhesive to affix Santa to my oval. I've trimmed cardstock from the kit to 4 by 6 and run it through my die cutting machine using that embossing folder to give it some texture. I cut a red mat to 4 1/8 by 6 1/8 and now have affixed my cardstock or pattern paper to my mat with double-sided tape and placing Santa on top, and I have mounted my sentiment onto some foam tape, and we'll go ahead and place that here on my panel. I'm using double-sided tape that I partially released and placing that on my card base, and then I will finish releasing once I get that positioned where I want it. Okay, so I'm gonna finish this off with some glitter silver pops of color. And this stuff is very fluid, so be careful if you're using this brand. So 2 here and 1 over here. Not used this before. It does not look opaque, so it looks more transparent, so hopefully that will dry back a little more solid, but I'm not sure. Okay, but we'll see it in the finished cards. Card number 3, I'm using the large swag image from the kit, the stamp set, and I'm inking it up with Mid-Tone Navy by Hero Arts and stamping this first. My color scheme is going to be blue So this is going to be perfect because it's going to allow me to see my embossing powder once I put it on and make sure that I have adequate coverage. Okay, so now let's prep this for heat embossing. The dye ink dries very fast, and so now I'm going to use my Versa Mark clear embossing ink so that I can emboss this image. Get in the middle. So we're going to use our superfine silver by Wow and cover that. Okay, I'm placing my stencil, and I want my first snowdrift to be above my sentiment. So I need a scrap piece of paper so that I can tap off my brush as I go. Okay, because I don't want any harsh lines, so I'm just lightly coloring over my stencil to get a defined snowdrift. And then I'm going to reposition and go up a little higher, maybe about like that. Tap off, repeat the inking. Oh, I like that. Okay, and then I want just a little more up here, up above this last leaf, just to kind of make that stand out, and end it about there. Then I'm going to come in with some more Salty Ocean and just come from the right and just blend that out a little bit too. Got a big blob there. Let's see. Okay, leave a little white here. Come in with the blue and come out a little bit here and a little bit towards my sentiment, a little blue. Yeah, I like that. So now I'm going to come in with my chipped sapphire, darker, tap off, and lightly blend around. Well, I thought that was light, but it's not. Not as light as I wanted it. And I'm blending. I'm not going to re-ink if I could help it. I want to blend a little darker around my image. Try and fade this dark blue or this blue Salty Ocean spot out a little bit, like that. Okay, go around, extend it out a little bit, yep, like that. And then try and fix this. That's a little dark, so let me come in with my Salty Ocean to try and tone that down a little bit. Again, I want a wispy look. I don't want... Okay, let's bring in a little more salty ocean right about in here. Yeah, I think I like that better. I think that's good. Got some white peeking out there like that. I'm going to wipe off, just using a dry cloth to wipe off my embossing. Okay, I'm going to place a couple of drops of my Distress ink raehunter picket fence on my palette. 2 drops of or 2 squirts of water, and mix that. I have my design, my panel in my splat box, and let's see, get that out of the way, and want some paint, or really snow all over my panel. Now, I initially was thinking I would go around some of my branches with my white gel pen, but I don't think I need to. Okay, so that looks good for snowy effect. Okay, so let's just blot just really the large image to get most of that paint off top, and then whatever dries there is fine because I do want it to look snowy. Okay, so I've cut this to 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and mounting this onto my card front. Now I am going to bring in some Elizabeth Crafts glitter peel off stickers. There are 3 sizes on this sheet, and I'm going to use the smallest and start at the far right top and form a triangle with these 3 stickers. Oh, I love the snowy effect of this card. So I'm going to turn my ink on, and while that's heating up, I want to take a look at my foil, adhesive foil options. I want this Christmas tree, so I'm going to just cut that out. And I want a sentiment. I think I want this large Merry Christmas sentiment to go underneath that. Oops, that was off camera. So I think I want that large Merry Christmas and the tree. I think I'll do the tree in green. Okay, so the instructions, because I've never done the adhesive transfers before, it says peel off liner on backside and position on project. I remembered this trick of using just a piece of tape to peel off. Alright, let's get this positioned just so. Looks good, and then that sticks down. So then we need to run this through our ink or our die cutting machine. Either will work. So I'm going to place this inside of my parchment. and then my carrier. But if you don't have a carrier folder, I think just the parchment will work. Okay, and what I'm peeling off, you probably can't see. I'll try and get that in the camera, but the sticky is left here. And I saw on another YouTube video that you can also foil this and then just fussy cut it out and use it as an embellishment. So I'm going to save that. Here I'm placing my foil over the adhesive, shiny side up, and we'll run this through my ink. Okay, let's peel and reveal. That looks great. Let's go ahead and use our grid mat and T-ruler to line up where we're placing the sentiment, and decided to use gold foil for my sentiment. So let me just run this through first to get the adhesive onto the cardstock, and then run it through again with the gold foil shiny side up. That looks good. Yay. Got a little bit of foil here. I can get that off with my mono sand eraser. I think I've done this before. Yes, that is going away. Okay. All right. That is my one design. So while foiling, I had two pieces of the adhesive transfer, and I placed one, or the top, on top of my sentiment and ended up with the blooper here, but we're going to fix that. I've taken my Merry and Bright stamp and just cut it because it's so wide. I didn't, yeah, it's wider than my 5 inches. So I'm going to use my grid acetate sheet to line up that Merry sentiment atop my design. No, the gold may not match as well as I want it to, so I think I'm going to heat emboss this in silver with silver embossing powder. Yeah, because I would be heartbroken if I mess it up again in my what do you call it, my embossing powder, my gold doesn't match the way I want it to. I'm using Versamark ink to stamp this a couple of times to make sure I get good coverage. I'm going to go ahead and stamp my bright part of my sentiment, so lining that up, and I will use Versamark on it as well. And then I will take both of my pieces and emboss them, heat emboss them at the same time. I've cut my sentiment down on either side, and then now I'm gonna mat it onto some gold cardstock to tie this silver in with my design, card design. My happy accident, I should say. I used the guide on my trimmer to trim to about 1/8 of an inch on either side. Okay, I have lined up my grid line on my panel on my craft mat. Now I want to Make sure my bright is centered. That looks pretty good. I went ahead and committed this to my panel using liquid glue. I'm flipping this over and trimming off that excess on either side. So I am going to cut this down. That was not my original plan, but remember, I have to compensate for messing up my sentiment. So I'm just framing this, making sure that everything looks even. Placing my purple tape, don't want to place it over any of my foiling. Okay, I don't want to get any debris that may be stuck on my cutting plates on my panel. So I usually will put just a regular piece of copy paper on top. I ran that through my die cutting machine and now gently removing my purple tape. I'm going to bring in some gold foil and use the next size larger frame die, and this is a waffle flower A7 die, layering die set, so just using the next size up. Okay, make sure I have my card base turned the right way. The right direction is important. And then I will line up my card panel and commit. And now I will bring in some Nouveau crystal drops in liquid mercury, which is a silver type color, so I can bring or tie in my silver and gold a little bit more. So I'm going to put some drops throughout. Card number 5 uses the second panel that I foiled using the adhesive transfers and the foil that came in the kit. I did this one just like the prior foiling that I showed you. And I've cut a mat from the Schoolhouse red cardstock that measures 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and the main panel is 4 1/2 by 6 1/2, leaving a 1/4 inch border, red border. So here I'm just mounting my main panel to my mat using double-sided tape, and then I will use double-sided tape and mount that to my card base. I used ruby slippers, Nouveau crystal drops to add my embellishments. Because I had a slight imperfection, the bottom right of my poinsettia, I did add just a dab of ruby slippers to that bottom corner, and then to match it up, I put a little bit at the top corner. For card number 6, we're using the panel that we foiled on camera. Okay, let's commit this to Schoolhouse red border, and this is, let's see, this mat measures 4 5/8 by 6 5/8, and my panel was cut to 4 1/2 by 6 1/2. So leaving just a narrow border. Now that we have that matted, we have little ornaments on our tree, and I am going to use Moroccan red and ruby slippers. I think I'll start out with ruby red. We're just going to make our ornaments with our Nouveau drops. And I'm going to go from left to right so that hopefully I don't smear as I go. So I want my green star to be gold, so I am going to mask off using post-it note paper that I've cut down. I'm just going to mask off my star. And once I get that all masked, then I will apply my pops of color in glitter gold and let that dry. Once I have that mask, I will go ahead and apply my pops of color and then gently remove my masking paper. But I do get a little blob and so I'm using my reverse tweezers to try and just push that back to the center. And off camera, I add about 5 drops of that pops of glitter color around my image. I ordered this 12 by 12. These are tags for Candy Cane Lane Prima Marketing. So I ordered this because the ephemera was out of stock when I bought this. So I'm going to use some of these as my ephemera basically. And then if there is no greeting or sentiment, I will use one from the kit. Initially I was going to use this door and a sentiment from the kit, but I decided, because there are a couple of sentiments, well, maybe 4. Anyway, some sentiments I haven't used, and I want to use this joy. So I'm going to turn this over because it just fits. Yay. Okay, but I'm going to butt this up against here so that if need be, I can easily realign it. I have heat embossed and my sentiment in gold. I've matted my tag with the red cardstock, and now I'm just trimming it down, and then just to leave about 1/8 of an inch. And we'll use my envelope punch to round the corners of my mat, the bottom corners, and then I will fussy cut the top out. I'm using my Blueprint Design Sketch 1046657. So this is an older sketch, but I've adapted it to fit a 5x7, and I will definitely link that below so that you can download it if you choose to make this design. I also have this same design in a slimline on my site, so all right, so I've cut my pattern paper to, and I'm making sure I place it right side up, to 3 3/4 by 3 1/4, 3 1/4, and then these smaller pieces 3/4 inch by 3 and 3/4, 3 1/4. Sorry. Okay, and so they're going to fit on my mat. And my mat is cut to 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. And when I'm doing this type of design on one mat, I like to kind of lay it out where I want everything placed before I start gluing, so that in this case I have 4 pieces. Those 3 pieces that I'm not gluing will act as a guide for the piece that I'm gluing. And so I do have a metal table underneath. So I'm placing my magnets on my pieces. And I don't know why my ears have been plugging so much lately. That's a little bothersome when I'm trying to talk and I don't know how loud I'm talking. So once I get these pieces laid out where I want them, I will start with the bottom largest piece and apply my liquid glue, and then work my way up to my next largest piece, and then do my 2 smaller side pieces, get those affixed to my mat, and make sure that, I keep my spacing so that I have about 1/8 of an inch of border for throughout my pattern paper and mat. I use my acrylic block to apply pressure as I glue these pieces down. Okay, so to show you this, I wanted to break this up a little bit more. You see how that sits. There's nothing wrong with that, that's fine. But I wanted a little more solid in my background to kind of break up all of the pattern paper. So I've cut out a scallop circle, and that's going to break up my background a little bit more, which is what I want. And I'm trying to decide, yeah, I think I want it offset like this. So here I am going to just use some liquid glue on the top left to affix this to my scallop circle, and then flip that over and lift up just a bit and add some more glue underneath. And then I'm going to use scrap pieces of cardstock to build up this bottom portion so that the entire fixture image is actually leveled out on the same level. So that's what I'm doing here, just cutting pieces, and we'll level that out. And then when I'm done, I will go ahead and apply liquid adhesive to the entire image, or yeah, I'll call it an image. And then go ahead and affix that to my panel. I'm bringing in some Nuvo crystal drops in pale gold and adding 3 drops of those just to further tie my gold into my card panel. Love the way this turned out. On to card number 8. I'm going to trim off the top above the circle and trim off the sides and just make a small rectangle with this. And then I will round the corners with my envelope punch board. So I've cut a mat to leave an 1/8 of an inch around, border around my little reindeer. Oh, he's the cutest. Or she, because she has a pink poinsettia. So she's the cutest. I'm going to use some liquid glue to fix that. I set that aside. And now I am going to go ahead and assemble my card. I am using a card sketch from Kendra's Card Challenge number 8. I will link to my card challenge videos so that you can check them out if you're interested. She has over like $400 in prizes to be given out, and you have until December 31st if you want to enter the card challenge. So with her card challenge, she gives you the sketches and cutting templates, everything. So I'm using one of those, and I have adapted it to fit my A7 card. Okay, got it. And so I've cut this piece to 5 by 5.5. And then here's the A2 card design that I'm looking at. Cut this to 5 by 5.5, and a top piece to 1.5 by, well, it's going to be by 5 after I cut it down, but I just left it long, or wide I should say. So I'm going to affix this using some liquid glue. I've also cut a strip from a different pattern paper to 1.5 wide. So I just wanted to trim off that edge there. Then I'm going to use some liquid glue to fix this also. Okay. Just kind of eyeballing how much glue or how far to extend my glue. Okay. And I will go ahead and I want to fix that right underneath my top pattern paper. Get that flush left. I don't want to cut off the left. I will need to cut off the right. Okay. Okay, I am now going to add just a sliver of glue along this edge so that I can affix a tiny strip of red cardstock. I turned that over and snipped those edges off. So I die cut and heat embossed my sentiment off camera, and will place it towards the left on my panel. And I have popped up my main image, my little deer, on foam tape, and we'll just remove that release paper and add it to the card. I'll bring in my envelope punch board again and round the the top and left corners on the right. And then I will bring in my Elizabeth Crafts peel off embellishments in gold and add 3 of those to my design. So for this card, I am using my Blueprint Design Sketch 110. That is made for 5x7 cards. I also have one that's made for slimline, and let's take a look. Okay, so I've got my mat, my panel. Oops, better turn that up, right side up. Oh Lord, that'd be a disaster. Okay, so I am going to just eyeball the middle, cut up the middle just a little. Bring in my long scissors since this is so wide, because I want to go from corner to center. And same. All right, so that's my banner or fishtail, and then I'm going to mount this all the way up. All of the measurements I will link to my Blueprint Design Sketch and measurements, and you can just download that. Mounting this to my mat, and then we'll use my scissors to cut a fishtail in my mat. Camera, I heat embossed a sentiment right underneath my joy and gold heat embossed, and I've trimmed it down so that it's a rectangle, and now I'm using liquid glue to affix that piece to my mat. Then I will just use my trimmer to trim that mat out. Cut a gold snowflake shadow from gold glitter cardstock, and now I'm just cutting that in half, and I will place that on either side of my sentiment and pop that up on foam tape for some added dimension. Card number 10 is my final card. Okay, I've cut a red mat to 4 1/8 by 6 1/8, and my main panel is 4 by 6, so I want to go ahead and get that placed down and commit. All right, and I'm keeping the direction, pattern direction, you know, because this has some printing on it. I've heat embossed my sentiment and cut it out with my MFT banner dies and applying liquid adhesive and covering up my sweet Rudolph sentiment with Merry Christmas. And then I will affix this to my pink strip and get that lined up, affix it with liquid glue. I have made a small bow for my front just to cover up that circle where the tag, where you put the string through for a tag. I just want to cover that up since I'm not really making a tag. And then I'm adding some Elizabeth Crafts gold glitter peel-offs to finish off this card, and I've already committed the base to, or the panel to the card base. Let's take a closer look at all of the cards I made in today's video. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up, and if not already a subscriber, consider subscribing. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. I wish you and yours a happy holiday. Good day, friends.